there is so much will to use AI tools from junior developers, but they don't understand what problems they created with that AI. And then seniors understand only like how much they will have to change in that code, and they don't want to use AI. So there's basically a friction between these two layers of developers.
Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Peer Review. Excited to have Lena Skliarova-Mordvinova today. She's an AI architect, speaker, entrepreneur, and co-founder and CTO at the Goodface project, which is a really interesting platform using AI to power product formulation, compliance, and transparency for the personal care industry. They help with formulation of products like shampoos, lotions, cleaning supplies, so kind of anything that could affect your or be on your body. Welcome, Lena.
Thank you so much for having me, Amar. Pleasure.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So just to give a little more background on Lena, with over 2 decades of experience in artificial intelligence, she's built a number of different companies. She's done a lot of varied things around AI, from space-based image recognition, predictive toxicology, proprietary data sets or data mining and generative algorithms. So she's got a lot of experience here. And I think will be interesting to talk to her a little bit about kind of this classic AI, ML, but then also how that's, being used along with Gen AI. So great to connect.
Thank you. It's mutual.
Let's rewind to the beginning of your career. You actually were building neural networks, before Python and a lot of these frameworks even existed. What pulled you into AI so early, and what's kind of changed the most, in your opinion, as we've gone along?
So it was long ago when I was pulled into AI. It's like literally over 20 years. And I was always fascinated by AI, although it was not so fancy at that point. And I was very interested in the fact that some connections in the data can be detected by algorithms, but not by humans. And so just that fact was very interesting to me. And I was like, well, if that can be done, can I figure out algorithms that can find those connections? And so that's where I began. I found a book about data mining. Yes, when you needed something, you didn't go to the internet, you went to the library and you actually searched for a book. So I began that era.
Got it.
And there I found some information about data mining, about how people are like basically building software around that. And I was like, oh, I want to do that too. And so
So what do you feel like has kind of changed the most over the last, let's 20 years? Like
mostly it's how easy it is. It's ridiculous, because at that point I had to invent my algorithms, and it was not easy. And then when I was sure that they're working, and they were working way faster than whatever was on the market at that time, I was like, all right, now I can like implement it and connect it with neural networks. And then I had to make a neural network, right? And so you had to know the map, you had to know the formulas, you had to know some not so fancy programming languages. And it took a lot of time, right? It took a lot of time to build that software. It was ugly. As an engineer, you're maybe not the best person to do the design. So basically it took years, instead of how like now you just grab a package, upload it, install it, and there you go. Like you have image recognition. A couple of days ago, I was a judge on a hackathon, and what people were able to complete within 16 hours is ridiculous.
Yeah. It is crazy how fast you can go now, right?
Mm-hmm. So speed.
Obviously, you can use AI tools to even give you a prototype and things like that.
Yes.
Okay. So maybe let's talk a little bit about the Goodface project. I mean, can you tell us a little bit more in detail about what that project is and kind of, what it's working on? It sounds very interesting.
So Goodface project started over 7 years ago, and its mission is basically it was different on different stages. First, it was a platform that was supposed to help finding non-toxic personal care products. But, to figure out personal care products that are non-toxic and actually maybe they work for you, personalization too, you need to know all the chemical ingredients, all the plants, all the properties in the world. and then how they combine into the product and connect to your needs, and to maybe some medical research. And so eventually we figured out that to solve that little piece of a problem, we had to know way more than we thought initially would have to. So we ended up knowing over 160 millions of molecules, their structures, and the system, the AI behind the platform. It can predict missing data like toxicity, carcinogenicity, whether it's a mutagen. And, it assigns these probabilities to ingredients, and then in combination of several ingredients, it can tell you whether the product is toxic or not. That approach cannot be driven by LLMs. So we do have a lot of proprietary methods for working with 3D molecules, with vectors, and basically combining deterministic with probabilistic instead of just going with probabilistic. And I think that in general, this is going to be the trend that we'll see in the upcoming years. Is probabilistic is good, LLMs are good, but they need to be combined with something that has structure, and you can rely on something with 100%. So basically, the core of the Good Place project, it can predict some things with 100%, like know something, right?
I think that's like a really interesting, important point, because I think what everyone's seeing with LLMs is that the rate of hallucination and mistakes is significant, and maybe it's going down and it's getting better, but it's still, at the point where I think it can really impact the outputs, the outcomes that you're getting. And I think having, people talk about, using some kind of RAG-based approach to, improve the context that the LLM has. But I think, as you talked about, kind of blending like that known knowledge with maybe the probabilistic approach to hopefully get to a high enough probabilistic approach that you can be confident enough in the results.
Yeah. So LLMs, we may tune them as much as possible. Still, there will always be a path to all humanity is to be destroyed with non-0% probability, right? So we are relying on systems where mathematically it's a probability.
Yeah.
And then they're very good for systems where you will not really suffer from having a wrong answer, right? Whether you can accept 99% quality of the output, it sounds like it's high, but then there is still 1%, right? So if you agree to have that 1%, then it's fine to use the LLM. But if you cannot have that 1%, then like basically you should not be. And it's true for chemistry and whatever industry requires very precise data.
Yeah. Very interesting. I mean, I think that concept is going to become more and more important across kind of all fields where people are using LLMs, right? Because I think, like you said, that error threshold is kind of critical in what you're doing. And I think, of course, expectations are going to go up over time as people use the, what people expect today is different than 2 years ago, and 5 years from now is also going to be quite different.
The expectations keep rising.
I think in 5 years from now, people will be pretty annoyed if an LLM makes a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
So, you talked about kind of like you're applying AI to a pretty highly regulated, ingredient sensitive space, a little bit about that known entity that you've tried to, nail. So what have been some of those like harder technical problems to solve in this arena around using AI here?
Mm-hmm. Well, just creating the models of molecules and mapping them and matching them was quite a big task. And also another quite big task and quite complex was making sure that the system with like the same level of confidence knows all the plans. Pretty much all the known plants on the planet, because they can go into the products too. So I would say that vectorization of the and data cleaning, right? Data cleaning is, it's not fancy. I don't think that people are talking enough about this. Data still remains the main source of pain, and figuring out that the flow of data is constant, the data is auto cleaned, and then it's
Yeah.
reviewed. That part is like basically piping.
So have you guys built a lot of tools and workflows to kind of help with that data management, cleansing, et cetera? Or what have you seen kind of work for you?
Yes, we did have to build a lot of tools. A lot of tools are appearing now very fast, and like we of course, it's great to look into the progress and like, see how things can be done faster now. So again, like building a company 7 years ago and building it now, it's a very different story. Um, and I guess that's for entrepreneurs that are just beginning now, I would say like you need to go AI first. Just build
Yeah.
out like build that concept, that MVP as easy as possible, and then actually figure out the depth because it is there.
I mean, one of the things I was just part of a group discussion a couple of weeks ago where people were kind of talking about that using AI to do that MVP, and the general sense is like you can do that very quickly now, right? You can get a prototype up in a couple days.
Yes.
And so then everyone feels like, oh, we're good to go. This is a solvable problem. We're going to be able to do this with Gen AI or whatever. But then taking that to like a production level, 99%, 99.9% accurate, reliable system is turning out to be a pretty big gap, you know? And all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, we thought this was going to take another 2 weeks and it's now taking 6 months. So I'm just curious, you know, if you've kind of seen that or have any thoughts around those types of issues.
I think that it's going to be a point of frustration for many CEOs at this point.
Yeah.
They'll be like, well, you showed me MVP. Like, why can't you push it now?
Yeah, totally.
So it's for the next, I'd say maybe 9 months to a year. All the technical people in the companies will be having hard conversations with their CEOs, explaining that, well, AI is good, and yeah, I can show you MVP, but still, I need to figure out this and that, and like, but it worked.
Yeah, like when we run it now on our evals or we do testing, like there's still a lot of issues that come up, you know? Yeah, totally. Let's talk a little bit about, like you were just kind of saying, these tough conversations with the CEOs. I mean, the other, you know, constant debate happening is what's going to happen to engineering culture and engineers, right? Is
Mhm.
Gen AI going to replace engineers? I mean, what's your kind of thoughts around that?
Well, there will be several like flows, let's say. Junior developers, yes, they are in trouble because basically they were doing those MVPs that were not working, and so now AI can do that. So for many of them, this will mean that for a while, like for for some significant time, they will have to work for maybe lower uh, um, salaries. They will be lower because basically nobody will be willing to hire a junior. And I think that everybody is already observing that. While senior developers are not really willing to accept AI, and quite often you will see that those very smart senior people will be telling, but well, it produced something, but I cannot use it. Produce it, but I have to do so much work. So there is so much will to use AI tools from junior developers, but they don't understand what problems they created with that AI. And then seniors understand only like how much they will have to change in that code, and they don't want to use AI. So there's basically a friction between these two layers of developers. But everybody from my surroundings just wants to work with senior developers now. They want the experience, and they're willing to actually like do the MVP with AI, and then actually ask the senior developer to now fix everything that is wrong.
Make it production ready.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's two interesting thoughts that come out of that. I mean, one is for that if we don't employ the junior developers, then how do they become the new senior engineers? Which I think I'm seeing that happen, or that discussion happening in lots of fields. I was talking to a venture capitalist, right? And he was kind of saying, well, if you don't hire analysts, or if you think about the investment banking, if you don't hire the analysts, or you don't need the analysts and the associates now, like how does somebody become a managing director? The MD at Goldman or Morgan Stanley or whatever, right? So I think that's kind of a real issue
Paradox.
there. Yeah, real paradox. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, one thought I've had is that, do we just end up like moving things even earlier, in the sense that school starts to become more pre-professional, So like in college, you're doing more internships,
Yes.
or, you're actually really pushed to develop more production level kind of projects. So by the time you graduate college, I mean, look, you're not going to be a senior engineer, but maybe you've already skipped that first year of general engineer, like where you're kind of a clueless engineer your first year,
Yes, Amar, I think that you're completely correct in this. And the schools and how kids are going to study and what they do in high school and in college will completely change. It should. And basically, it's not easy. But I think that kids should be exposed to entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
selling that lemonade. Um,
But you think because then everybody can be an entrepreneur, or what's your thought there?
Um, I don't think that everybody can be an entrepreneur because it's just not in the nature of every single person, right? There is like entrepreneurial spirit versus like there are some people who are just not risk tolerant and they want to go by account path. But at least kids need to see the example. They need to know that there is a path. They need to try. They need to do. And yes, they will have to maybe complete some internship. And that's another question, like a huge question. How do we make internship more accessible? Because at this point, AI is also replacing interns. So,
Right.
so it's all of like a social commitment to students to actually take them on board, give them that opportunity to work. I don't know, for free. It's
Yeah.
maybe because like literally companies will be spending their resources to bring up those kids to speed.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't have an exact answer, and I don't think anyone has.
Talking a little bit about, you said everyone becoming an entrepreneur. When you think about, you've been an entrepreneur, been on a number of boards. I mean, what do you think about, what's the right advice for early stage founders, um, about how to think about Gen AI and how to use it in their company, but also maybe how to make sure they don't become obsolete themselves?
Mm. They say there is like a Chinese curse. So for the ones that are the worst, they say, "May you live in the time of changes." I think one of we are definitely cursed in that aspect. As entrepreneurs, everything is changing so fast. You need to be on track. Like literally every day, something new comes
Yeah.
in the technology wise and maybe like company wise ways. So for those who want to start a company, they need to do this. They need to do this as soon as they can, and they need to try. Make sure not to just use AI wrapper around some LLM. Basically, AI will be changing things so fast. Information will be losing its value so fast. And actually, I'm writing a book about
Oh,
information
wow.
inflation and the death of business. So that is basically a perspective on how the value of data has changed across a lot of stages that we went through, and how without adapting to new realities, companies will start dying while using the same data. And so data will be one of the sources of death of the business. Because, for example, like let's just take an era when there were websites where you could check reviews for a product. There were whole websites just dedicated to that. They were making some revenue from ads, and they were purchased by Amazon and so on and so on and so on. So, there was this era, they made their money. Whoever followed that trend, they were late, right? That's it. It was like the opportunity was gone. And this opportunity is right now is actually going to be very interesting because the companies will appear from nowhere. Like with those MVPs, in one day, they will create businesses. Some of them will raise money and then they will disappear. And that's mostly because they will not have the unique core supporting workflow with some very, very unique approach to data transformation. So pretty much something that can come from a scientific expert in fields or like scientist, like basically somebody with a very good perspective on what has to be done to data, can transform it, input that into algorithm, then it has some value because it basically automates knowledge of an expert. So this or workflows.
Yeah.
Workflows are still there. Like,
Got it. So let's close with one bold prediction from you. What's one big AI trend that you think is going to really reshape engineering and product teams, let's say over the next 12 to 18 months?
one big trend will be adjusting to the fact that AI can produce a lot, but not necessarily the qualities there. And seeing something that works doesn't mean that this will work for the company. So
So you're saying you think that gap will be closed in 18 months? Like the prototype will work, or no, you're saying something else?
Yeah, I think that maybe not in 18 months, but in a couple of years it should be because there are so many systems that are working out, like Kimi, for example. Kimi AI is also a very good one, and alternatively it's coming from China. um just that the competition will create those systems that are getting better and better. So I guess we might be there in 2 years, uh but definitely not in a year. So that will be like basically the mismatch will be the trend of the year, I would say.
Got it. Got it. All right, great. Well, thank you so much, Lena, for being on peer review, and thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you, Amar. It was a pleasure talking to you.